What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Warriors Next Adventure Podcast. Sorry you got to listen to me ramble for the next 2-3 hours, probably 2 hours. For those of you who don't know, Warriors Next Adventure, we're a nonprofit that helps vets with PTSD and suicide prevention. We run a 24/7 crisis line where vets, can call any time of day, any time of night, and I'll pick up the phone. I have 19 years in crisis intervention training, including the Air Force, 8 years as a Minnesota State Patrol dispatcher, and I've applied that to the veteran community so I can, help out the veteran crisis line. I know there's a lot of vets out there that won't call the veteran crisis line. If you're in crisis, just call somebody. And that's why I wanted to add another option with Warriors Next Adventure, because I'm not a coach. I'm not a mandatory reporter, and I'm not going to send you to the loony bin. I'm just a guy that's experienced some stuff. And what's up, Phil? How you doing, buddy? I'm just here to try to help by using my example of my do's and don'ts and things I did wrong and the things I did to fix myself. Go check out warriorsnextadventure.com, and you can donate right on the donate button. That goes to PayPal Giving Fund, which there's 0 fees, so we get all the money, which is nice. We also have Facebook. We do quite a few Facebook fundraisers. If your birthday's coming up, we actually raise a lot of money on Facebook from people doing fundraisers for their birthdays for us, which is great. I think last year we raised about $15,000 on Facebook just from birthday fundraisers. So I appreciate everybody that's done the work and helped us raise some money. And I appreciate everybody else that's been helping out. Now, if you're listening on a group on Facebook, we cannot see who you are. It just shows up as Facebook user. So what you need to do is you need to go in and give StreamYard permission to share your name with us. So if you're in a group, we cannot see who you are until you give them that approval. So I'll do my best to stay, communicating with you guys during the show. Today we have a guest on from Silly Beaver Comedy. We actually met at the Veterans Day 2023 comedy show, and we ended up raising $6,600. We had AJ Wilkerson, we had Jonah Maddox, we had Sydney Stevens, and then myself as well. And that just kind of blew up. And luckily enough for me, the Doghouse decided that they wanted to start doing comedy. And I've been really trying to push comedy this year. So I decided to produce a show for the Doghouse. And we're going to be donating a portion of the proceeds to Warriors Next Adventure. So we're going to focus on a good headliner, a mid, and then also we're going to be doing a 5-minute guest spot for a lot of the newer comedians that are trying to get their name out there, so we can help out the comedy community as well. And then I get to do 10 minutes each show. So it's a good way for me to practice comedy. It's a good way to raise money for veterans. We'll have a table there for Warriors Next Adventure so people can kind of see what we're all about. And the beautiful thing is I get to pay 2 vets to sit at a table for us. On top of that, we're going to hopefully be going to be a spot where veterans or comedians want to come and veterans want to come hang out. So I met Jonah on the show, and he's been a huge help in the comedy world. I went up to go see a show at Silly Beaver Comedy, and their opener didn't show up, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go on?" I was like, "Oh shit, here we go." So I hopped on, and it went well. So he's been a mentor for me in the comedy world. So let's bring Jonah on, man. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Da, 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 da. Good.
You can look at the camera. You can look at me. It doesn't matter.
Which
one? Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
You live in St. Cloud, right?
I'm not going to tell your viewers exactly where I live.
What's your address? What's your social?
My firstborn social. No, I live probably about 20 minutes outside of St. Cloud.
Okay.
In the opposite direction of here.
Yeah.
if he gives you some idea of outside of St. Cloud, yeah. But I've been in Minnesota for 10 years.
Okay.
10 years now.
Did you move to Minnesota for any reason, or why are you here?
Why am I here? Dude, that's the first thing people say when they find out I grew up in San Diego. They're like, "What are you doing in Minnesota?" And happily divorced, and that's why I'm here. Now, I was lucky enough to get stationed actually in Rochester.
Okay.
I was active guard reserve for an Army Reserve unit, which is like, are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So I was their full-time staff for a reserve unit.
Okay. We call it AGR, active guard.
Yeah,
reserve.
Same thing.
Okay.
AGR.
Gotcha.
And that I just happened, there was my branch manager. So in the way the Army does it is like your MOS all has one branch manager for assignments.
Okay. Nice.
And my branch manager was like, that's a 1 in 10,000 shot, because I was going through a divorce at the time and my ex-wife was moving back to Minnesota.
Okay.
So it was like a 1 in 10,000 shot that I could even get within the state. And she got me a spot 2.5 hours for my kid.
Nice.
So that's how I ended
There you
up
go.
here. Yeah.
Okay.
And then retired out of Rochester and
Nice.
moved up towards St. Cloud.
When'd you retire?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah. Medical retirement.
So what'd you do when you're in the Army?
By trade, I was a combat medic or
Okay.
healthcare specialist, they
Okay.
called it. My recruiter was like, "You're going to drive an ambulance." I never drove an ambulance in almost 11 years.
They also told me I was going to jump out of airplanes for Air Force Security Forces.
Did you?
No.
Oh,
That
liars.
I did get to ride in Blackhawk a few times, but
a few times. That's cute.
not to be confused on a Black Hawk. It's very
Which has
different.
been a lot more than a few times for him. For him. No. Where was I going with that? I got distracted by Black Hawk. I don't know. Happens every time. No, really. Where were we?
You were driving ambulances. But
Oh
you
yeah.
never did.
Oddly enough, though, I never really drove an ambulance in the Army, but they still gave me a driver's badge, which requires like 10,000 hours of driving.
Okay.
The Army just like hands out medals.
I
Like
know,
my
right?
rack is like this. You think I did a lot of shit.
Dude, it's the same in the Air Force. I think
Was
I had 17 ribbons and medals. And I got
Nice.
out as an E5. I did 4 deployments too. I mean, that's most
Yeah.
of them, but
What was your job?
I was Air Force Security Forces. So pretty much
that
rent a
SF.
cop
Yeah.
or fucking, security guard for
MPs.
the most part.
Yeah.
But I got to the point where when I got to my first base, I jumped on a rotation. I didn't even do my job initially. So I was there for a month. We have what's called airman integration. So when you first come in, they teach you how to not be in basic and how to be in the active Air Force. Because it's very
That's
fucking different.
adorable. You guys have to take a course how
I know,
to
right?
exit basic training. That is the most
How to
Air
not
Force shit
be a
I've ever
psycho.
heard.
How to realize that, this is a corporation, essentially.
Oh, was it like
And-
don't get a loan for a car at 20%? Was it like those kind of things?
Yeah, don't marry a stripper.
Okay, the
kind of
Army
thing.
does those too.
Okay.
The Army does those.
I did that for a month, got to my unit, and then I went to training for a month or so. And before I even got out of training, they put me on pre-deployment training. Now, initially, we were supposed to go to, I think it's called Tikrit, whatever the fuck it's called, in
yeah.
Iraq.
Yeah.
And we got rerouted on the way to Qatar. And I don't know shit about deployments. And I'm like, fuck, what's Qatar? And I started looking shit up. I'm like, oh, it's not too bad.
Club Med.
Dude, I tell people all the time, Qatar was my hardest deployment, man. Like, you never know how hard it is when you walk a mile to the gym and you go to the Dairy Queen and they're out of mint ice cream. It's rough, dude.
Dude,
It's
I don't
rough.
like how serious you looked at me while you said that. That was I was expecting some real shit. I was like, oh, a mile to the gym. That's tough. What else? That was good.
Oh, hell yeah. The Chili's by the poolside, man. They ran out of fries like once a month. It was rough. You had to get out of the pool and knock on the door to get your food. It was rough.
Dude, I feel you. I feel you. Do you know what the Army situation with Qatar, like their relationship?
No.
So if our deployments, and Grant, I've been out for a couple of years, so when I was in, at least, if your deployments were over a certain amount of month,
For R&R.
you got R&R.
Yeah, so we were the cops that made sure you guys didn't drink too much.
Right. If a soldier didn't have family, Qatar was an option they could go to.
Yeah.
Or if they did and they just didn't want to tell their family they had R&R.
Well, it's nice because you can go downtown to Doha and you go to this mall called the Bellagio, and there's like a river going through it. And I didn't go to this one, but there was another one that had a giant ice slide in the basement. You could ride down it on tubes and shit.
In Iraq.
No, this was in Qatar.
Still Middle East desert,
It's
right?
hilarious. And you get guys in like turbans and shit riding down on these tubes. It's just it doesn't make sense. And then I got back from the deployment and I was a heavy gunner. I was 240 and 249 certified. The next deployment I got back, I didn't even go do my job and I went straight to pre-deployment training again. And we were on, I was shooting 50 cals and I was pretty fucking good at it. There's not a lot that I've ever been good at. Like shooting a 50 is the only thing, mainly because it's spray and pray. You're going to fucking hit something eventually. But I won the top gunner competition in Yakima and I set the record for the military for the fastest time. I think my seconds from the time the target was up from the time the target was hit was like fucking 0.6 seconds or some shit like that. So I was pretty good at it. That's the only thing I've ever been naturally good at. Everything else, I'm just fucking terrible. And I'm going to work my ass off to get decent at it. But I did that for 6 months, got back, finally went to my duty station, and we call it flight, right? So like A shift, B shift, C shift, whatever. It's flight for us. So
I don't know what A shift, B shift is. That's not an Army term.
It's just like days, mids, afternoons, or days, mids, nights.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, fuck you guys.
That's cute. Sorry, I just thought I was working 24 hours a day in the Army, but you guys had shifts.
Yeah,
No.
it's nice. You work 8 hours, you go home, you drink, have fun, fuck off.
Damn it.
But I went. They put me on post for the first time, and I had no fucking clue what I was doing because I had never worked post before. Because stateside is very different from deployment, right? Deployments, we're doing convoys every day, and route clearance and shit. So I'm sitting there, and next thing you know, I hear fucking Alpha 1 on the radio, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm Alpha 1. I was like, go ahead. And next thing you know, a squad car rolls up, and they put me in fucking the back of the truck, and they replace me, and they bring me down, and they start screaming at me. I'm like, the fuck is going on? They're like, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. I'm like, I've never worked flight before. They're like, bullshit, you've been in for 3 years. And I'm like, I've been deployed the whole fucking time. So they bring me in front of the flight chief, and I explained to him, like, I've never QC'd before. Like, we have to QC, I think, every 6 months or every year or some shit to see if we're proficient in the actual security job and what we're supposed to be doing. And they're just fucking cussing me out. I was like, I've never QC'd. I've never been on flight before. And so they had to go back and look at my records and like, this dude's never been trained. So I had to go back into training for fucking 3 months. No, it was like 3 weeks. And then I go back and I do post for like a month. And then they put me on as a pre-deployment trainer. So I go to this separate space on base. Now, this was the cutest training ever. So this was
I'm already scared for our Air Force.
So this was for base populace, right? The finance guys, the fucking lawyers, the services people that do like food and shit.
Sure.
They had to go through some sort of pre-deployment training before they deployed.
That is so cute.
We
had to do that too.
This was beautiful though. We worked Monday through Friday. We had nothing on Monday. It was cleanup day, but we cleaned up on Friday. So we'd go in and we play UFC in the projector on my fucking PlayStation. Tuesday, we'd have the class come in. I had no classes that day, so I literally would just fuck off and play games on my phone or whatever. I work on my car in the garage. Like, there's nothing to do. Wednesday, I would teach like 4 or 5 classes to like, it was like maybe 100 people, but it's like colonels and all kinds of people. So I got my public speaking done just doing that.
Yep.
Because it's intimidating talking to an officer.
It's more intimidating than any public speaking position because that person can take your entire life.
Exactly.
They could take your pay. They could lock you up. They can make you do extra duty. Yep. The power is real.
Well, and then that's how I got my ability to speak, but also to add comedy in everything that I do. Because I've been a fan of comedy since I think I started watching George Carlin when I was like maybe 10. And I loved it. So I wanted to add humor in everything I did. So I'm making these guys laugh. And I got fucking colonels laughing. I got majors and shit. I'm like, all right, cool. And so Thursday we would do what's called an FTX, right? So I would teach like how to find UXOs and shit because that's what I did when I was doing convoys. And so I would teach these people like how to find, like how to identify what could potentially be like a mine or a fucking tripwire or whatever. And they give us these G8, what are they called? The G simulators, the ones that whistle and blow up.
I don't know.
I don't remember what they're called, but you pull a pin and you throw it and it goes.
Okay.
And then you start screaming at these motherfuckers. And like our job is to freak them the fuck out. And so we throw these things, and man, if you were nervous about the Air Force, you should have seen some of these motherfuckers react to a bomb going off when they're not expecting it. Like crying, grown men crying, like people crawling on the floor, freaking out, like actually like freaking the fuck out. I'm like, hey, it's just a game. Like, relax, buddy.
Yeah. I could feel for him though. When you think it's real, like
ground burst simulator. Thanks, Phil.
For those first few seconds, real is real. You know what I mean?
Right? Well, it freaks you out for a second. And that's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
Right. But we need to help them be able to gather their shit and figure out what they're actually supposed to do. So we give them all M16s and blanks and shit. And then we hire like 6 or 7 people to play.
Thank God for blanks.
I know, right? But it was fun. And I did that for 6 months and then deployed again.
You did that? You guys did that pre-deployment training stateside or overseas already?
Yeah. So with us, our pre-deployment training, like Qatar, we went to, it's called Brave Defender. We called it Gay Defender, but it was actually kind of fun. We had a huge shoot house with 240s and shit and 249s. We're running around blasting shit. It was actually a lot of fun.
Where was that?
That was down in Pensacola.
Okay, so stateside though.
Yeah. And then 2008, we went to Fort Lewis. We trained with the Rangers for like building, clearing convoys and shit. And then we went to Fort Dix for the 2009 deployment. And then Bliss for 2011.
Ooh.
That sucked, dude. They had these fucking shitty Connexes with swamp coolers. It was hot as fuck.
Yeah.
You wake up and your balls are sweating. You go shower and your balls are sweating when you walk out.
Fort
Terrible.
Bliss is a legitimate representation of an army base.
It was rough. Dude.
Yeah, that's a great example of like all the places I went to in my army career.
Well, they put us out in the field too, so like we weren't like by the BX or anything. So we were playing out in the field the whole time. But the training, I mean, I loved the training portion. That was my favorite part about the military. I enjoyed it. I had fun because it's like my whole childhood. You know, growing up out in Delano, my mom was married to some douchebag. So like the only time I was safe was out in the woods or out in the boat or just being away. So that's kind of like that was the life that I grew up with. And so now I get to do this and get paid for it. And like, this is pretty legit, dude. I was like, I could be at home in jail doing coke with my friends or out here actually doing something, you know?
Yeah. That's funny. I grew up as a city kid.
Yeah.
So I looked at the army as like getting all my life's worth of camping done in one short period.
Well, you retired. How long were you in?
I was medically retired early. I did like 10 and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have done 30, but I'm glad I didn't because, man,
me too.
The guys that I started with were like first sergeants or E8s, E9s in 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
And they're like, you just be glad you're out because, I mean, there was so much. It just wasn't the military that I knew anymore.
Yeah.
And I knew towards the end of my career that it was changing when I was getting yelled at by majors for putting female soldiers in parade rest. Well, I'm sorry, I'm an E6 and this E3 just got caught lying to me about being outside her training radius. And she posted all over social media about it.
Fucking idiot.
I wasn't smoking her.
Yeah.
She had a female battle buddy. I wasn't even yelling at her. And at the time I worked in a hospital out in DC, Virginia to be, in fact, Fort Belvoir. And I pulled her away from patient care. So I did everything right. Wasn't yelling at her. She had a battle buddy. Wasn't doing physical retraining. Mm-hmm. And I still got reprimanded, and I was like, "Okay, it's time to go,
dude.
It's time to go."
We got in trouble in Iraq in 2008 because the way it worked was, I think it was 4 days a week we'd be out doing convoys, and on the 5th day we had QRF, so we just fucking sit by the trucks and hang out, play games, watch movies and shit. And one day, Tino, this goofy ass Asian dude that was on our group, I love that kid. He takes his shirt off and he's just tanning on the top of one of the Humvees, right? No big deal, right? The commander walks by and sees that shit. And I actually talked to our squad leader about this. I met him in like outside of Philadelphia when I was traveling. And I talked to him about that. He's like, you know what? He was a cool guy. Fucking great dude. Super fair. You know, even when I got in trouble for some dumb shit, he cussed me out and then he like mentored me the whole time to help me figure my shit out.
Nice.
But so he's like, he went in there and he got cussed out by the commander and shit. And he's like, for fucking sunbathing? He's like, we're just sitting here relaxing. Like, what the fuck do you want us to do? And so he told my squad leader, like, you need to fucking smoke these guys or we're going to kick you guys off the fucking team. So he made us do fucking back and forth with all of our fucking gear on the middle of the desert in 110-degree weather. It fucking sucked. It was terrible, dude. I think we did it for like 30 minutes or so. But it's like, it's so fucking stupid. Mm-hmm. And then in my oldest daughter, she's 20. It's my girlfriend's kid. She just graduated from Air Force basic training. I think it was last February or some shit. And I'm like, how many times you get smoked? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh my God. I was like, how many times did you have to do push-ups for fucking up? She's like once. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, they're not even allowed to scream at us anymore. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, man. How do you expect to have a military that's going to react when we're getting shot at and crazy shit's going on if you've never been put through the chaos?
They don't want that anymore. Because that's not the future of war. The future of war is this right here, right?
Drones
and
shit.
You don't have to be physically fit to do that.
It's ridiculous.
You don't have to do a 50-mile ruck march, you know, bordering the border of Pakistan to get to your next OP with 100 pounds on your back like they made us do.
Fucking ridiculous though. Like, how do you expect to have a ready force when you can't even prepare them because of feelings?
Well,
I just don't get it.
Luckily for us, our next war is on one of two battlefronts.
Yeah.
And either way, it's not going to matter. The first battlefront is going to be atomic. Doesn't matter whether you're fat or in shape or not, you're wiped out. And the second is digital.
Yeah.
Also not good. I'm hoping for digital.
Yeah. Let's hope that.
If we go atomic, I mean, take out Oklahoma first. Like, we'll be okay. There ain't shit there. I've been to Fort Sill, dude. There is nothing in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I was in Oklahoma for in 2021. I drove around the country and I filmed a documentary tour. It's called PTSD versus Jiu-Jitsu. And once this dispensary opens, like I finally pay for somebody to edit it because I've made like 2 cuts of it for like 20 minutes and it's fucking terrible and just delete it because I think it's shit. But anyway, so I was in Oklahoma City and this fucking whole state sucks, man. There's not many states that I've been to. Like there's nothing to offer here.
Yeah.
You know?
I've never been to Oklahoma City, but I feel like that's the best representation possibly. And if you say it's not good, because the Army just sent me to some whack places and the surrounding areas were interesting.
And also Jersey. Jersey sucks ass. If you're from Jersey, I'm sorry, but Jersey's fucking dog shit.
See,
you ever driven on the turnpike?
I went to Fort Dix for 4 days.
Okay.
On the worst, I won't even go into the horrible mission we had to do there, but we wrapped up everything. We worked overnight so that we had the last day free, and we took a train into New York and did the New York thing for like 18 hours. So I'm fond of the area because it gave me that 18 hours in New York and I've never been back. So I really don't have a good feeling on that area. But.
So my buddy Phil Blackman, he says Texas hasn't floated off into the Gulf because Oklahoma sucks.
Oh, that's true. Suction cup.
True. But no, like you know, the thing is, when I first got out, you know, I got out because of the whole Jody situation. I was going through divorce and shit, so I was just like, fuck this. And it was guys that I was friends with too, so I felt betrayed. So I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And then I was out for a year, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll join the Guard. And I just got promoted to E5, which is Staff Sergeant in the Air Force. And I was like, man, we'll try it out. So I go down there and I sit down. I was like, yeah, we're going to start you off as an E4. I'm like, no, like I earned my fucking stripes. Like you guys just give them to people. I earned that shit. And they're like, nope. I'm like, all right, fuck you guys. I'm done. And that's probably the best thing I ever did because the monotony of the military is just not, I'm fucking over it. It's young kids battle now. And I'll let them fucking take that shit.
It really is. We're older and wiser now.
Yeah, dude.
Like I couldn't do it now.
No, I couldn't listen to a fucking, and think about it like this. This is the crazy thing. If you go back and think about it, most drill instructors were maybe 23, 24.
Right.
You got some 23, 24-year-olds fucking screaming at you. Fuck that.
Not just screaming at you, but literally running your everyday life.
Yeah, it's just no.
Now think about this. How old are you? I think we're close.
36.
Okay, so you're a young buck, beautiful young buck. No, I just turned 38. But
okay,
so we're about the same age. But man, I think about a 23-year-old now.
Yeah, I
wouldn't put that motherfucker in charge of putting my trash out on Monday morning, let alone a platoon of.
I know,
and because the Army, our basic training platoons were 500-600 a platoon.
Holy shit!
Like that, or a company. Sorry, a company. So that you would have like, I don't know, 8 to 10 drill sergeants in charge of 700, 600, depending on the class soldiers. It was and then they're 23 years old. And they've already been to war and they're divorced and they have drinking problems. I'm like, at 23, I'm glad they're in charge.
Yeah.
I could see how my military career went off so well.
Well, and then the way that the training's going now too, it's like you almost lose a little bit more faith, you know. And again, like you said, things are changing, shit like that, sure. But I think that was a big coming of age for a lot of us in our era of the war, you know. I mean, because we were fucking at, even though it technically wasn't a war, we were at fucking war. People were dying, you know. We were going over to fucking other countries, blowing shit up. Call it what you want. That was a fucking war, right? The shit that I've seen in Iraq, I don't care what anybody says. That shit was nuts. But basic training for me was a big coming of age because I was a huge pussy. Because like
we know you joined the Air Force.
Fuck you. But no, like I just, you know, I was a very sensitive kid, and you know, because child abuse is really gonna fuck a kid up for a long time. And when my mom dropped me off and dipped out, she left me at my dad's. I think it was 9. You know, from that point on, my life was okay. I got my stepmom. She's my mom. I love her to death. Great person. My dad traveled. He's always gone. He's a Marine Corps vet. So he was kind of a dick growing up. You know, we have great relationship now, but childhood was rough. And, you know, I just never felt good enough. And it was beaten into my head that I was a worthless piece of shit. And so that's how I truly felt about myself. So the first deployment to Qatar I went on, my buddy Judd, who's actually one of my board members for the nonprofit, he would fuck with me constantly, and I would cry. I would get so fucking angry, I would cry because I just didn't know how to handle my emotions. So shortly into that deployment, I started training jiu-jitsu, and that was a big help for me, just to kind of learn that I'm capable, and I'm not a fucking weak little bitch. And halfway through the deployment, I told him, like, why are you such a fucking dick to me? And he's like, that's the first time you've stood up for yourself. And I'm like, why? He's like, because you're such a bitch, dude. He's like, we're friends. We are all friends. Whether you fucking think we are or not, we're friends. And I'm like, yeah, but why be such a dick? He's like, because you're a fucking pussy and you need to stop being one. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, but you also need to stop being such a fucking asshole to everybody. And so it's funny because the both of us were kind of at two extremes. He was a fucking dick to everyone and always fucking with people, but I didn't understand the humor. Right. So now that I started to hang out with these guys a lot more, he was like a year older than me and kind of took me under his wing and shit. And we started hanging out a lot more. And I realized, like, I was being such a bitch. Like, I need to stop getting so offended by shit.
Right.
And so that actually taught me to, like, kind of find my manlyhood, if you want to call it that. It was really good for me through going through basic and, actually being good at something, shooting the 50. Like, I love doing it. And I became reliable. And that camaraderie was extremely important for me. And, say whatever you want about how they do things in the military now, whatever. But when I was in, it was really good for me. It also fucked me up a lot considering I'm fucking 100% permanent total. But I think the military is something that people should experience just because, like, imagine how many more productive people we'd have. But at the same time, I look at the veteran community and man, there's so
how productive is the veteran community?
There's so much struggle. I fucking hate it.
Dude,
yeah. If you look at everything that we learned in the military, like, take what you learned in the military, convert it into civilian life, and learn how to be a fucking leader. And that's kind of what we try to focus on with the nonprofit is, like, how can you take what you've learned and convert that into civilian life? It took me a long time, dude. It wasn't until 2000. I got out in 12. In 2015 is when I had my suicide attempt, and I decided to try to get my shit together. But it still took me like another 5 or 6 years to learn how to, like, do something. And so starting this nonprofit, I didn't know shit about business, nothing. And so I taught myself marketing. I taught myself everything to do with running this shit, and then eventually started another business. And I'm like, okay, why the fuck did this take me so long? So what I'm trying to do is bridge that gap and shorten that suffering time to teach guys how to fucking actually take what you've learned and use those strengths, because the amount of I don't like people, I like to fucking just isolate myself bullshit, like, it's not healthy. I don't care who you are. This shit ain't healthy.
I don't know why you're picking on me. I thought I was a guest.
You run a comedy show, dude.
Dude, that's out there. That's sometimes the only day of the week I leave my house. But I work online or with the comedy stuff, and then I also am a 3/4 time student, so yeah. I do sit at home a lot. But I don't know, the veteran space is interesting, and I have an interesting perspective because I worked for the federal VA and I worked for the state VA here in Minnesota.
Okay.
Collectively, I think it was about 6 years for the two of them. And then and ever since I retired, I've been heavily involved in different nonprofits and stuff. And the veteran community is very interesting because you had mentioned something about like all the benefits that you could come out of the military with,
yeah,
and use those to transition into a successful civilian life. And I think the thing is, we're never going to be able to get those kind of like qualitative studies or quantitative studies rather, because when you were in, I'm sure you came across a percentage of airmen that were shitbags.
Oh, for sure.
Those airmen get out and now they're veterans, and there are a percentage of veterans that are still shitbags. I think they were shitbags across the board. Same thing in the Army.
Yeah, man,
we had some shitbags in the Army.
Yeah.
And then we also had those dudes that were shit hot. Shout out to LT Rodriguez. But that dude was, even though he graduated from West Point, which don't get me started on those guys. The dude had the character and the leadership inside of him, because even as a young LT, we looked up to him. All of the enlisted, like, he knew what he was doing. and then just kept going with that.
Yeah.
And I think he either just retired or is about to retire. I don't keep up on you that much, but like whatever he does will be very successful. You know what I mean? So I think there's the rainbow sherbet of all the folks in the military. And unfortunately, when you work, just to wrap up that whole thought, when you work for a nonprofit, you're trying to help out that shitbag demographic. When I was working for the VAs, whether it was state or federal, it was those shitbag demographics to middle shitbag demographics that were really trying to help, because the ones that are shit hot, they didn't need the help because they were going to figure it out either way.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's my theory. But
No,
I got burnt out on veterans. My people, like literally my people, I got burnt out on. So that was one of the reasons why I left the state VA.
Well, this can be pretty exhausting, you know, and just because someone's a vet doesn't mean they're automatically a great person, great representation of the military, stuff like that. However, and I'm not saying all of them, right? Don't get mad. But especially in the veteran service community, whether it's the VA, nonprofits, whatever, you're gonna run into the gimmies, you know, the people that just take, and they give nothing back. And I see those people pretty immediately, and it's pretty easy to tell like what their prerogative is.
Yeah.
My theory is I want to do my best to help them shift that perspective, right? And the reason why I get so much out of this is because of the service to others kind of thing, right? Because we all have, you know, the whole 5 love language thing. Acts of service tend to be veterans, military folks, first responders. It tends to be their love sign, right? And so for me, I get a lot out of helping people. And so a lot of these guys that come to us and start helping us out, they start realizing like, oh, this guy's actually got something pretty good going. You know, he's got a good idea with this. And I'm not saying I'm fucking perfect. I'm not the perfect representation or anything. But when you stop making everything about me and poor me and everything's bad, you know, everything's against me bullshit. Once you get rid of that and you start realizing that you can quite literally make your life into whatever the fuck you want. Like, I don't care who you are. You can create something, you know, whether it's getting a good position at a company or starting a company. There's nothing holding any of us back but ourselves, you know, and that to me is sad when I see somebody with potential just playing the whole poor me card and just doesn't do fucking anything with it. So, you know, I get people like I was on that show last night and they're like, dude, how the fuck do you do all this shit? I'm like, because man, I don't want to be that guy that just sits around after service and just complains about everything. I was that guy and I fucking hated that guy. And a big part of it was the amount of times I've almost died as well. I realized that life is really fucking short, and what impact are you going to leave on the world? And I don't think everyone has to live their life every day like I'm going to change the world. But I think overall, if you don't have something that you're giving to the world, it's going to be really hard to be happy. You know, like you, let's go over to the comedy side. The show that you put on, I think is fucking great.
Hey, if you're doing comedy to help people, you're in the wrong business, my friend, and we will get to that.
Well, I do think it does help people because comedy has been literally how I've helped fix myself. When you learn to laugh about the situation, you win. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think there's a big part of it. So let's talk about Silly Beaver and how you got into comedy. What made you want to start comedy?
Whew. I mean, I guess you got to go back to, because like the blocks were set way before doing stand-up ever came into place. I grew up kind of like being the jokester.
Yeah.
I never really thought that there were words that were off limits.
Yeah.
Like, okay, hold on, pump the brakes. As a white dude, there's definitely words that are off limits. But I mean, like
maybe one word for sure.
Like, and even then, I grew up in Southern California. Just depending on which friends you were with.
Yeah.
Like, no, but just kidding. They like words to me only have power if you let them.
Yeah.
You know much. And I think I got that from growing up around a verbally abusive dad.
Yeah.
Biological dad. It's like after a while, it's like, yeah, those are just words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I had no problem being like the jokester growing up. And then comedy, like stand-up comedy came into my life in 2013. I took that position in Rochester as AGR. My boss was in El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
E7, really smart dude. And my first day on the job, he goes, "Do you have a drinking problem?" right? And this is all Zoom because he's in El Paso.
Yeah.
And I lied and said no. And he's like, okay, well,
what is a problem? Like, do I enjoy it?
Dude, I was literally coming off a geographical bachelor deployment and a divorce going into that duty location. I definitely had a drinking problem. But he said, okay, good. If you don't have a drinking problem, you need a way to deal with the stress of this job.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, dude, I got this. I was a combat medic with 1st Infantry. I'm sure this desk job will be fine.
Yeah.
But he was right, dude. The stress of that AGR job was so incredible. But he's like, you know what I do? He's like, when I leave my office, I turn on Pandora and I turn on comedy.
Yeah.
And I just listen to it on my 45-minute drive. And it registered with me as such a wise thing, especially as that job went on, because it got harder and harder. And I started listening to like comedy podcasts and stuff because there's like, man, if I could laugh for those few minutes in between conference calls where I want to blow my brains out with incompetent officers that are hours away, I was like, then my day's just a little better. So that's how I really got into like watching stand-up. Fast forward to 2018, no intentions of doing stand-up comedy. Had a cush job, had everything going well. And then
you want to drop that stand down just a little bit. Your face is right behind the thing. You can pull the mic up.
Turn?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah,
that's fine.
My face is not worth seeing. But so fast forward to 2018, I had a military friend that I used to be stationed with, also here in Minnesota, contact me, and just out of the blue was kind of like, I've been trying to, I want to do stand up.
Yeah.
I think you're pretty funny. You've always said random shit. Tell me what you think about my jokes. So I still wasn't even involved. Less than 12 hours from that phone call, a friend that I grew up with that I haven't talked to in years called me and was like, I'm going to try stand up. I always thought you were funny. And I was like, the universe, you know what I mean? Like that was at that time where I was just coming off some heavy stuff and I was like in my best recovery mode. So there was like, the universe is telling me type shit.
Well, you got to be a yes man sometimes.
Dude, and it was weird as it was. So I made the deal with all three of them. I was like, let's just try it.
Yeah.
We'll just try it. So me and the dude that lived in Minnesota went to a couple open mics and we're like, oh, we will go and not be the worst. So that was the fear. Like, I just didn't want to be the worst.
Dude, some of the open mics I go to, I'm just like, Jesus, someone needs to tell him he's terrible.
But they can't, you know, like those dudes that just never get better.
Yeah.
That's like their gaming group. It's their community. Yeah. Comedy means so many things to so many different people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started, was kind of like on a dare between two friends. And then they both tried it once, never really did it again. I think one friend tried it again, but I just kept going. At the time I was single. I only had my kid half the time. So it was like, well, what do I do with the rest of my time?
Sure.
And then that just progressed into owning a comedy club and going insane.
Well, dude, it worked out. Like I went to a show, I think it was a couple weeks ago. I don't remember. 2
or 3, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But it was great because, you know, it's about an hour drive, but I like driving, so it's not a big deal. But I've been saying I wanted to go to a show for a long time, and so I saw a show pop up. Just one of your posts pops. I'm like, I gotta go to a show. So I'm like, fuck it. I don't have my kids next Saturday. Let's go. And the good thing was, I think I've only done like 7 sets, dude. You know, and
we could tell. No, just
fuck you. But no, like
how many of those 7 were actual shows though? Like show.
I've only done one open mic.
Right, that's crazy.
And in the
baseball world, you're batting like a 900.
Well, the cool thing is, I love it so much, and I've been a huge fan of comedy for like almost 30 years, and it's something that just, it brings me happiness, you know, and I love seeing people laughing. And you could probably agree with this. There's not a lot of better feelings than saying something fucking goofy and then seeing everybody smile. Like, I love that. And a big part of, you know, I think about 6 years ago, I made some random stupid fucking Facebook post. Like, you know what? I'm going to make somebody laugh every day for the rest of my life. And I've held up to that. And a lot of it has to do with, like, even when I take crisis calls, my goal within 15 minutes is to get that person to laugh. Usually it's something really fucked up, you know, especially when somebody's in crisis and suicide and shit. sometimes that off the wall from fucking left field stupid shit is really going to break the tension.
Yeah.
And, similar to what you were saying is I've been writing for 2.5, 3 years maybe, and I had never had the balls to try it. And it took me almost dying on the fucking ocean, sitting in that life raft, literally thinking like my only regret is that I never tried stand-up comedy.
That's hilarious.
So I literally told myself, if I survive this, I'm going to go do comedy. So after my fucking migraine went away, I had like a 45-day migraine, dude. It was rough.
Dude, the comedy scene does not deserve your last life thought. I just want you to know, comedy is not worth your last thought.
No, man. It's I've seen Bill Burr live. I've seen, I've seen a bunch of other people like TJ Miller, and I go to the House of Comedy quite often, and I've been to so many shows, dude, and it's just like, why can't I do this? I was like, I'm already a motivational speaker. Like the stage presence shit doesn't freak me out. My first time doing comedy was scary just because it's new. But I went up there and I found out the rule of comedy very quickly, that you don't tell your most inappropriate joke first. Especially when I was the first one on stage telling a joke about a kid jerking off a donkey in Iraq.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also depends on the room. You say that in a USO show, you're killing it.
Yeah, I know, right? I've gotten better at reading the crowd.
Yeah.
But the guy who booked the show told me, he's like, hey, that is potential to be a funny joke, but don't open with shit like that, dude. They got to get to know you a little bit better before you just hit them with some shit. But like, it's just, I fucking love it, dude. And I want to say my third set was in Colorado. We did a veterans comedy thing. Club 214 it's not really a nonprofit yet, but my friend Ashley started it. And because they're not a nonprofit, they couldn't do a fundraiser. So they used Warriors Next Adventure, which was sweet. And she did a great job setting it up. And I did like a 6-minute set, and it was the military crowd. So I fucking killed. Sure. I murdered. It was great. And these guys were fucking dying. One guy fucking almost fell out of his goddamn chair. I'm just like, okay. I think it's the crowd, but I think this works. And the headliner booked me for a show like 3 weeks later, but I don't fucking live in Colorado. So I flew to Colorado. Yes, I spent $1,500 to make $50 on a paid set.
Yep.
But it was 10 minutes, and I wouldn't say I killed, but it was a good show. And everyone was laughing. All my punchlines are hitting, and and then the Veterans Day one, that was a little rough. That was not my greatest set. I was a little nervous and shit.
I think you did fine.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was just because the whole nonprofit CEO telling dick jokes, it makes me nervous sometimes. Especially we're there for a fundraiser for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous about it sometimes, but after that, I'm like, what? Fuck this. I'm just going to do what I want, and then your set, I think, was my 5th or 6th set. So I don't know. I'm not saying I'm fucking a natural. I wouldn't say it at all, but I'm just really comfortable. And I think that helps.
Yeah. You said something about like, I could do this, I think, or just after going, you said like, I could do this. Why can't I do this? Thank you. And I think, that goes for anything. There are some people who are just born stand-up comedians. Yeah. Like they just are. But I would say that's a 5% of the comedy population. The other 95% of us, we just had to either get the balls to try it or get the balls to keep sucking at it long enough to get better. But it's really funny because I hear that all the time. People are like, I don't know how you do that. It's like, well, anybody can do anything. Yeah. Right. Like there's nothing special about your favorite comedian. Yeah. He's just practiced something, or she has practiced something over and over and over again over 15 years or 10 years or whatever. That's how they got to where they are. Yeah. I mean, it's the same with any practice. Any accountant, the longer they do it, the more they do it, the better accountant they are. But not always, because there is a 15 to 20% on the bottom half of the ladder that should just stop. But those are the folks that are in those open mics. That's their community. Yeah. And I'm new to producing a show, which, by the way, thank you for helping me with the Veterans Day show, because I think I talked to you about Sydney and you highly recommended her, and she was great. Yeah. Which, by the way, huge shout out to Sydney and AJ, because Sydney moved to Tennessee to live near AJ, and they're doing their podcast. Yeah. She's fucking crushing it in Tennessee, dude. Nice. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Yeah. I think she's back up at the Beaver in April of sometime. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to go up and see her. but she's actually coming to Cincinnati. So I found a trick, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm committing comedy fraud. I don't know. But when I'm going to be traveling, what I started doing was I called Bombs Away Comedy, and I'm like, hey, I've done a bunch of guest sets and stuff. Do you guys have an open slot? Is there any chance I could get on the show? I was like, you don't have to pay me or anything. I just want to do a spot while I'm there. And he's like, yeah, send me a video. So I sent him the Colorado video, the one that with the vets that I was crushing at. And right away, he's like, yeah, dude, for sure. He's like, we'll fucking put you on. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I don't want to be that guy saying like, this is a lot easier than I thought it would be, but it's a lot fucking easier than I thought it would be.
You nailed it. It's the comedy secret. It really is. And that's an odd thing about the comedy scene. And I would venture to say I'm not a scene comic. But the scene in general, from my impression through experience, it is 10 times easier to get a show out of your region than it is with places, comedians, venues that you are around all the time. Yeah. And it makes Gabriel Iglesias, I say that every time. Is it Fluffy? What
Gabriel Iglesias. I'm pretty sure.
Is that the singer? There's another.
No, that's no.
I'm just making sure I'm not mixing them up because I always
I'm
mix
pretty
them
sure
up.
Gabriel Iglesias. Let's fucking I'll play Jamie for a minute.
Yeah, Jamie, look that up. But he did an interview, and he was
Gabriel Iglesias.
Okay, so Fluffy for those of you in the comedy awareness zone, but he was doing an interview, a long podcast one time recently, and he said, like, telling his come up story.
Yeah,
and he's like, I couldn't get hired in the clubs where I was doing guest spots and killing, but I could go headline places in other states. Yeah. And it's a perfect example of the weird clickiness and stuff that goes on in the comedy scene, because I was doing like fundraiser shows like you're talking about in Florida with huge budgets, but couldn't get on at an open mic here at Acme.
I've been to Sisyphus 20 times. I've been up once, and that's because I put my star next to my name. I cannot get up at that club. Yeah. It's so fucking frustrating, because I just want to go do a spot once a week or something, and I can't get up. Yeah. I could go to the Terminal Bar, but last time I went there was 4 people there.
Yep.
So it's like, do I really want to perform in front of 4 fucking people? And so I don't remember who I was talking to. It was another comedian. I was talking to AJ, and AJ's like, dude, fuck that. He's like, just go do guest spots. He's like, tell people you're a fucking comedian. And I'm like, yeah, but he's like, no, stop that shit and stop telling yourself you're not a comedian. He's like, you're fucking funny. He's like, you did great. And he didn't say I was amazing or anything. He's like, but you did great. He's like, for the amount of shows that you've done, you did great. Just start fucking calling people and say, every time you're going to be in a new city, give them a call and go do a guest spot.
Yep. And
he's like, you're not going to make any money. I was like, I don't give a fuck about that.
No, you'll lose tons of money.
Yeah, I'm cool with that, dude.
Yeah. But I mean, any hobby, like, because essentially comedy starts as a hobby for anybody. Yeah. You don't, and if you start with the intention of like, I'm going to be rich like Kevin Hart, bye, bitch.
Yeah, it's not work.
Because I own a spot and I'm not even close. Like, the money I pay out to comedians, rightfully so, is way more than I'm bringing home.
Yeah.
But that's a weird phenomenon in the comedy scene, and that's kind of how I built my way up too.
Yeah.
What I did was I would pick places where I had a support base. Mm-hmm. So, right, like if I go back home to California, email a couple places and be like, not only am I passing through, I'll guarantee X amount of tickets.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'll either buy them myself and give them out to my family or whatever.
Yeah.
But like California is an easy one, because I did an open mic in California. I had 35 people show up because it was just all family that's never seen me do comedy because I'm out in Minnesota. Or pick another support base where, like Texas, I have a lot of friends in Texas that I was stationed with.
Yeah.
So go down there and let all my friends know, hey, I'm coming in 3 months. Then let the clubs know, hey, and I'll guarantee 10, 15 tickets. Yeah. And then for them, it's like, oh, it's 5 minutes. He's not asking for anything really. And he's guaranteeing these tickets. And as a promoter, like, I even find that more attractive.
Yeah.
Because the comedians that we hire at our comedy club don't promote. It's insane. Like,
I don't understand why
they could live in the same damn city as the club and they don't promote.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that. I mean, I guess part of the idea is you burnt all those bridges with your friends and family when you sucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
come out to my open mics, and they
Yeah.
did, and they're like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
So they're not coming back when it's an actual show, maybe, but it, yeah.
Well, the good thing is I have the nonprofit as well. So like it works out. I mean, we're just under 13,000 followers on the Facebook page. And yeah, Joe, my goal is to go get a spot on Kill Tony eventually.
Sydney did it.
Yeah, Sydney's set was pretty good too.
She did it like way early.
Well,
before she was even on Beaver, before any of that. Like,
well, the cool thing is she got a spot on the Secret Show too.
Yeah, I think she did that like within her first 6 months.
That's fucking awesome.
Of ever doing comedy.
Yeah, she's great, dude. But no, the cool thing is when I travel, it's for the nonprofit. So I'm already in an area servicing a shitload of vets. And then what I did for this one, because this is the first time, the Colorado one, the headliner asked me to come do it. I'm like, sure. And I brought like 7 or 8 people. And this time in Cincinnati, I got like 6 vets coming with me to help. And so I bought 8 tickets right off the bat. And I'm just going to give them out, so it works out nice. And so what I decided was once I started like doing okay at comedy, I'm like, you know what, this is going to be another thing I'm going to add to the nonprofit. We're going to start doing comedy. And so every time I do a show now, when I travel, I'm going to buy, if I can get on. So I'm like, hey, like I'll get 5 people for sure. I was like, but I could probably get more. And so I buy 5 tickets right away, and then next thing you know, if I'm doing a speech at a VFW or I'm doing a jiu-jitsu seminar, that's 30 to 40 people that could potentially come out and watch the show too.
Yep.
It's good for the promoters, good for us, and then I get spots. So it's a fucking win-win, dude. I love it.
I think if comedians thought like promoters, they would be better comedians.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much, like as a promoter or a comedy business owner, there's so much more that I look at when hiring a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Like what makes a good comedian doesn't just be a funny comedian.
Yeah.
Right. A good comedian from a promoter's standpoint, right? A promoter has a lease. They've got liquor license. They've got customers. They've got bills they have to pay based off you being the product, the main product.
Mm-hmm.
There's food and beverage involved and whatnot, but essentially the comedians are the product.
Yeah.
Right. So if my product sells more or brings more so I can pay the rent so that it could last longer, then that's a good comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of comedians miss that fact, like promotion. Comedians that promote bumps them up a level. And what makes a good comedian? A comedian that shows up on goddamn time. Holy crap.
I'm an hour early kind of guy.
Dude,
that's the military to me though.
Right.
I get nervous.
Retired military. If I'm on another show, I'm there 30 minutes early and I've already texted them 3 times. Like like coming here, I texted you like 4 times. Like I'm coming. But that's like, but I also try and step back and like, not everyone you deal with in this scene is a retired military member. They're not going to think 15 minutes early is late. So there's other things like, like promotion, being on time, ticket sales, algorithms. I don't think a lot of comedians understand how algorithms work. You know what I mean?
And hashtags too. It's such a simple thing that can help expand your reach too.
The biggest thing, if you want to help the comedy scene, I'll look right in the camera. If you want to help the comedy scene, like, comment, and share on comedy posts.
Yeah.
Because I can show you our metrics from behind Facebook, but a post that gets 1 like will be limited to the amount of viewers that it's put in front of. The post that got so for example, our big post on Silly Beaver comedy is when we do the annual picture and we showcase everybody that was on our stage that year in one picture, right? Almost all the comedians that are involved in that picture like it. Well, guess what? That ends up being our highest reached post of the year with thousands of views, and we didn't have to pay for it because other people in the scene understood. Or maybe they didn't understand the algorithm, but they assisted with the algorithm.
Yeah.
So when I see like the hater comedy scene not liking things that they're involved in or not sharing things, or not commenting on things, I'm like, you guys are literally killing the thing that you love. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's frustrating too, especially that, I'm treating comedy as a business, right? Because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm starting my 4th business soon. And I'm trying to treat it exactly like a business, right? You have marketing, you have, sales, you got experience. You just start throwing everything into it. And I think that's why things are working out pretty decent for me so far. and with this show starting at the Doghouse soon, you know, obviously I look at what everyone else is doing and I see what I like. And being a fan of comedy, that helps a lot too, because I understand the community a little bit, right? Not as a comedian, but as a fan. And I can kind of look at some of the things that people want to see. And I think that's what helps the show. And again, when it comes to like ticket sales and stuff, what I'm doing for the show is I'm giving each comedian the table where they can either sell it for $50 or they can just invite 4 people to come. Either way, that puts asses in seats. And that's what the Doghouse wants to see, right? So I'm looking at it as a promoter. You know, even though it's my first time, this isn't my first time organizing an event, right? That's all I do with the nonprofit. So it's having all those skills coming into it have really helped me out, just learning how to expand and how to get to that next level. When it comes to like writing and shit, I mean, I find comedy. I have a fucking 10-year-old. Well, she's turned 11 today. I have an 11-year-old autistic kid. This fucking comedy gold. That kid is fucking hilarious, right? Just the other day, sitting there playing Legos. I may or may not have taken an edible, and I'm sitting there playing Legos with her, and I just start thinking of goofy shit. And next thing you know, I'll run out, grab my phone, and start writing it down. And the only time I actually write a joke out is when I initially think about it. After that, it's just bullet points, and then I kind of just go off on it, you know, from there. And I've been listening to Joe Rogan talk about writing styles, and he always asks other comedians, like, what's your writing style? And I just take notes on everything. And I tend to become obsessed with things, right? I got that ADHD, but I also have that hyper focus. So I become obsessed with shit pretty quickly. And, you know, again, I haven't done many shows. So I still don't know shit about the comedy world, but it's already brought me so much happiness. Like, I fucking love it. There's nothing more fun than getting that nervousness before you get on stage. And usually within a few seconds, it's gone for me. Same as like when I was an MMA fighter. I get nervous walking out. You get in the cage, the bell rings, nervousness goes away. And it's just been, I don't know. I like this chapter of my life, and I'm really fucking enjoying it. I just appreciate all your help too. Just you've been a mentor to me in the comedy world, and then AJ too, which, you know, AJ is blowing the fuck up, which is super helpful too. We're actually supposed to be doing shows down in Miami in April. He's coming down for a fishing retreat.
Nice.
And he's trying to book out a show. And I'll tell you offline, but we got some pretty cool shit setting up soon. I want to keep it a secret because certain people don't know what's happening. So
can you say where in Florida on the just
so this is for something else, but for Florida, I think Steve lives in Port St. Lucie. So it'll be in that area. We might go down to Miami. In that general vicinity.
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, I don't know where yet,
okay,
but he's supposed to be setting up. And then there's another veteran named Shiloh Harris. He's a guy that completely fucking burnt to shit. And I think he was a master sergeant in the Air Force. But he's a comedian too.
Is that Crispy or is that a different dude?
No, it's a different guy. I know who you're talking about, but they look fucking very similar, which is ironic.
All those burnt guys look the same. Wow, bro. You're going to have the burnt community after you right now.
Let's go. Bring it, motherfuckers. But no, Shiloh is fucking hilarious. They
could only type their response.
No, Shiloh's hilarious too. So like we talked about doing AJ and Shiloh and have me open up for him, which would be sweet. So
nice.
But
it's fun. I've
just been really lucky, dude. I think having the nonprofit and then going to comedy, I think it was a smart move, you know, because I utilized the nonprofit a lot, right? And now I'm using comedy to promote the nonprofit. So every show we do at the Doghouse, I'm going to pay 2 veterans to sit back and run a table for me and just pass out fucking wristbands and information about the nonprofit. And so again, almost everything I do includes Warriors Next Adventure because I want to, you know, again, this sounds douchey, but
I don't want to pay taxes, bitch.
I know, right? No, veterans need to have a good example, right? Sure. And there's plenty of different versions of good examples. You got your Jockos, you got your fucking David Goggins and shit, or the hardcore hula guys.
Can't take
That's not me.
That's too much.
It's not me, dude. Somebody told me I'm Jocko light because I talk about the same shit, but I'm actually about peace and harmony, you know. So, but Jocko light. Yeah, I can't do that hardcore. You ever heard him read books on that fucking podcast? Like, little Jimmy ran down to the market. It's like, calm down, dude.
I can't. He's too intense just when he talks. Like,
I know, right?
Like, I could, if that guy was my commanding officer, I would have gotten in so much trouble.
For sure.
I just would have been telling jokes left and right in formation.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, when I won that Top Gun competition in Yakima, I got coined by a general. And he's like, son, you sure you don't want to be a ranger? I was like, no, sir, y'all do too much PT. And he laughed. And then I got an LOR for it, which is
Nice.
like our version of slap on the wrist. And I'm like, I got an LOR for making a joke to a general that made him laugh. He's like, dude, you don't fucking joke around with generals. I was like, they're people too, motherfucker. Relax.
Whatever.
Most of my fucking punishments in the military is because I said stupid shit. So, I mean, I don't know. I've loved comedy for so long, and it's been pretty easy to take my day-to-day life because, you know, tragedy plus time equals comedy. You know, and I've had a lot of fucking tragedy in my life, and I can take that and make it fucking funny. You know, like I think the day that I found out I had ball cancer, the first thing I did is went home and started writing jokes because it's like, I'm going to laugh at this and I'm going to make this material rather than let it destroy my fucking life, you know? And it's, you know, I mean, ball cancer is simple. You just cut it out, done, you know, not a big deal, but it's still fucking cancer, you know? And my grandma actually sent me a message. I told this one on stage before. My grandma sent me a message because I posted about it within seconds. Veterans were calling me like Uniballer and fucking One Nut Wonder and shit like that. She's like, your friends are so mean to you. I was like, no, grandma, they're friends. And that's just the military. It's the way it is.
Dude, my military friends are ruthless, especially the guys I deployed with.
Yeah.
Like I'll post something on Facebook regarding a show or selling out something, and they'll be like, still not funny, never coming to a show. Like, and they started doing that on Silly Beaver's page, and I had to tell them, like, guys, that's a business page, please don't. Like like you could post shit on my regular page all day, please, but not the business page.
I know, right? Back off a little bit,
because like if someone sees that, they're not going to go to that individual's page and find out they're from Cleveland and have never been to a show.
Dude, so when you remember that joke that AJ told when he was on stage? So I guess when my buddy Josh, my VP, went to go pick him up to bring him to the show, I guess he was working out a joke in the car on the way there, and he compared me to fucking Tom Hanks. He's like, motherfucker's like Castaway. He's got AIDS. He's like, I think it was cancer, but who the fuck cares? I was like, you motherfucker. It's just, dude, I love the comedy world, and all the comedians I've met have been great. The open mic scene is not, it's not for me, dude. It's just not. I can't get up, first off. Second of all, you go to some of these shows and it's almost discouraging because some of them are so fucking bad. You know, and I hope everybody who wants to do comedy can eventually get to a point where they're doing well. And I fucking root for everybody. But god damn, man, sometimes you go in there and it's like, man, am I this bad? And it starts to make me doubt myself sometimes. So it's like, fuck, dude, like. But I think, like I said, I've been to maybe 20 shows at Sisyphus and signed up, and it's just, I can never get up, dude. But I started bringing vets there on Thursdays. I think we've been to like 3 shows now. I took like 5 or 6 vets. It's free, so it doesn't really cost us anything. So it's just one more thing that I can add into the nonprofit. It's just something else that guys can get out of the house, you know, sit down and just laugh and have a good time.
Yeah.
You know. So when did you start Silly Beaver Comedy?
Our first show was June 4th, 2022.
Okay.
So we just had our 100th show this last Saturday.
And are you guys consistently doing weekly, or is it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
we took last summer we moved down to 2 shows a month just because summertime is not comedy time in Minnesota. People are out in the lakes, they're traveling for vacation. So we bumped down to every other week last summer, but otherwise we've been weekly for almost 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
It's been,
that's awesome.
It's been interesting.
I'd like to get the doghouse there eventually, but you know, we're probably just going to do monthly.
That size venue would be extremely hard to get to, in my opinion, to get to a weekly basis where you keep the venue happy.
Yeah.
Right. Cause a place like that could put in a band pretty easy for low cost, and it doesn't matter whether people like them or not.
Well, the beauty is what we're doing is after the comedy show, they book a band, right? So once the headliner gets on, we transfer the door, right? So the door starts going to the band after that. So all the show, every ticket sold for the comedy show goes to the comedy show. And then, you know, the walk-ins and everything are all ours up until like 8:15 or whatever. Our main guy's going to go up at like 8 or some shit. I don't remember. But what we'll do is like we transfer it and then the band gets the rest after that. So it's actually working out really nice. The doghouse has been, you know, Chad and Mike are fucking awesome. You know, I approached them maybe a day or 2 after the comedy show. I'm like, hey, let's keep doing this. Like, I really want to get more into comedy. And I mean, shit, I'm a producer, right? Not for comedy, but this is what I do is I produce shows, I produce events and shit like that. This is what I do. I was like, I don't think it's going to be hard. And I was like, plus I've started to make friends with a couple people in the comedy world that, would help us out. So what we're talking about doing is maybe twice a year doing like a big headliner. I emailed Chad Daniels because he's from here. I think he's from Fergus, but he's in Minneapolis all the time at Acme and shit.
Chad, like from Dumb and Dumber?
No, Chad Daniels. So he's got a special called Dad Chaniels. He's a fucking hilarious Minnesota comedian. He's so fucking funny, dude. But yeah, if you look him up, he's great. And I'm trying to get him to come do at least one show, but I'm sure that's going to be a pretty penny.
Those can get expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. But, so for those bigger shows, obviously the show's going to cost a lot more.
Yep.
But we're just selling by table. So, front row is $100 and then 75 and then 50 bucks for the high tops and shit. And then we got 2 VIPs on stage because I've had people email me. It's like, hey, where's the VIP status? I'm like, shit. So I called Chad. I was like, hey, can we add a VIP table like on stage? He's like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And I'm like,
on stage? Okay. So, okay, I'm picturing the stage.
Yep.
Are they behind the comedians, like where the band equipment is? Are they on the side?
So they'll be on the side. So like, the steps as you go up, there's a spot there that would be perfect for 2 tables. So we're going to put them kind of staggered, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll do it the first show, see if it works out. And we already have one, it's not technically sold, but ready to go. And then I got another guy that asked about it too. So, I mean, we'll probably sell it. So I'm going to try not to shit myself when it's a week before and there's no tickets sold like the last one.
Just take the table down.
I know, right? I'm probably going to end up doing that. But if
the tickets don't sell, no one knows.
Exactly. And I'm not super worried about it, to be honest, because the high tops are $50 and we're charging $10 at the door for standing room. So, I mean, it's a fucking 12 extra or $2 extra to get a table, for 4 people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a pretty good setup. And the first thing they said is, dude, you could charge way more. I was like, it's not really about making money. I want to get people in these seats. Like I want to have East Side St. Paul to have another fucking comedy scene because there's not a lot around here. I think the closest thing is there's like 2 downtown St. Paul, but they're not comedy venues and they're like fucking cafes and shit. So they're okay, but it's not a great room, but I think the Doghouse has a really good fucking setup. I think it was a good set.
Location was good.
Yeah.
Things that add to location, like plenty of parking, access to the doors, bathrooms, things that some promoters never think about really matter. I
got really lucky with the Doghouse, dude. Like, I made friends
with
those guys about a year and a half ago before we did a concert in 2022 and we hired 4 on the floor and they're like a big like kick drum band. They do some covers and shit. They're a great band. But we ended up paying like $2,500 and nobody fucking showed up to see them. There was people there for the nonprofit, but I think there was maybe 4 people that showed up just for the band. So I'm like, this fucking killed us. I think we ended up raising maybe $1,000 after what we spent.
Ugh.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it. But then last year we made $6,600 and then the band ended up donating their pay to us too, which was great.
Nice.
Yeah. So we did really well.
So moral of the story, comedy does better than music. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%, dude.
All my musician friends out there. No, one of the guys that dared me to start, one of my friends that I was stationed with, he's a Navy veteran, but he's a musician.
Okay.
And he was a musician, tried comedy that one time and then continued with music, but he's amazing.
Yeah.
But we always give each other shit about comedy versus, because we're in a lot of senses we're competing for some of the same venues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially when you get to a certain level. So yeah, we're always going back and forth on what's better, but comedy really is better.
I don't know. I'd rather go see a comedy show than a fucking concert.
And especially if it's a cover band type thing. Nothing against cover bands. They rock but at the same time, like I could listen to it for free on Spotify.
Yeah,
whereas comedy you can't, especially at like the mid to low level comedy. As far as like the scene, you're never gonna hear some of those jokes on Netflix.
No.
Never.
Well, it's because Netflix is big on trying to censor and
dude. We were, when we first started, we were linked with a radio station. I won't say which one, right? But they had this like slot every day for comedy. It was called Laughter at a Quarter After.
Yeah.
Right. And so 7:15 every weekday morning, they would play like 90-second slots. Right.
Yeah.
And so when we came into town, they were like, hey, send us some stuff. We'll play your comedian stuff. And like we had this sweet thing going. But I had to every week try and edit 4 comedian sets down to 90 seconds. That was radio clean.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, at a 90-minute show, I can't get 90 seconds of clean material for the radio. I was like, this just isn't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had some people that, you know, because I've been asking a lot of people, like, you know, how to write shit, like how to do comedy, stuff like that. I'm definitely asking the wrong people sometimes, because a lot of them, the first thing they say is like, don't swear, you know, do your best to do all clean jokes. And I'm like, no, I don't give a fuck. I'm not trying to get on late night. I'm not trying to get on a fucking sitcom. I'm trying to say goofy, retarded shit that makes people fucking laugh that we're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
Because that, for me, that's what comedy is. Comedy is the shit. It's the place where you can say things we're not supposed to say.
Not in Minneapolis. Not where you're trying to do comedy.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be why I'm fucking blacklisted in Minneapolis right now.
That's why you can't get any open mics, because you don't say the right jokes.
Yeah, fuck them. I don't know. I'm big on doing shit my own way. And I know I'm not reinventing the wheel the way I'm doing shit. It's just, I'm not going to follow the fucking crowd. There's 2 ways into a successful comedy career, in my opinion. And when I say successful, it does not mean money. It does not mean Netflix specials. It means you're just doing it enough on a regular basis in front of real crowds. Yeah. That was success for me, because like I just wanted to do comedy. And still to this day, I hire more staff so I can leave my comedy club to go do a free set an hour and a half away. Yeah. Because that's what I'm about, is the stage time. So the 2 ways to get into it, in my opinion, is to be a scene comic, which is like you're going to all the open mics, you're making friends with the bookers, you're in the scene working your way up, which is incredibly challenging for me. Because I'm starting to notice that I'm not like I have a different mindset. I don't want to sit and drink and smoke weed and like just I want to do all those things, right? But my probation officer says I can't. But no, the other thing is like I also want to go to like my kids' PTA meetings, you know, and be involved and be able to coach his sports team. So I got to be very careful about what I say publicly and what my image is out there, to where as a 21-year-old comic who might still live at home or have an apartment with no responsibilities, there's a lot more freedom there. Yeah. And I think a great example of why I couldn't do it that way is to why Sydney could, right? Because when Sydney started, to my knowledge, she was hitting open mics 4, 5, 6, 7 nights a week, which in Minnesota is really hard to do. Yeah. You're having to drive 75 miles one way multiple times a week or further. That was literally impossible for me as a dude with a job who has 4 kids and a significant other. Yeah. That is not even a possibility. So to become a scene comic in 2020, 2021, I had to look at it and say, do I want to ignore my responsibilities at home, tell my teenage boys I can't be a part of your life 4 nights a week because I'm going to go spend 3 hours in a shitty dark bar to try and do 3 minutes of comedy? Yeah. Like the risk to benefit analysis to me didn't sink in with what I think a man should do. I think I'm on that track. So then the only other way to do it is to do it your own. But I think you can't merge the two. In my opinion, once you're in your own comedian doing your own thing, the scene's going to reject you and vice versa. I think that's just been my experience. Yeah, I think that's why with this whole doghouse thing, you know, I'm taking some pages out of your book, and I want to take care of the comedians. I want it to be a place where comedians want to come, you know, and obviously the crowd. You know, you can't really have comedy without fucking people in the seats, right? But I want it to be a place where, like, hey, I did this show at the doghouse. They paid me, blah 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 blah. Fucking go check them out, you know, and you know. Like you, I see you up there doing your set at the beginning. I'm like, fuck, again, why can't I do that? So fuck it, I did it. You know? Yeah, anybody can. Yeah, and I'm going to try to challenge myself to try to do a new 10 minutes every single show, which is once a month. So you can do that. I have a lot of shit that I've never done on stage because I got like a solid 10 to 15 And I've kind of just been focusing on that to try to get, you know how it goes. Like you do a set and then you're like, okay, that joke was funny, but I got to do this. You know, I still walk over laughter sometimes. That's
Sure.
something I'm really trying to get better at, you know?
So, and you might have some trouble with that if you want my 2 cents.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do a new set every time, you're not going to know where those laughter pauses, where the hidden laughter, because right, we have anticipated laughter pause.
Yeah.
This is where it's going to hit heavy. But oddly enough, there's those between times that never saw coming, and they get the real good laughs. But if you only did that joke once and now you're on to the next joke, that next week you're not going to know where that line is. You know what I mean? So a way to get around that is what I bought a karaoke machine early in my career.
Yeah.
Dude, Michael's $40. I still have it. And I would do my set 2, 3, 4, 5 times in front of my significant other, because that, like, I didn't have to go to an open mic, but she could be like, oh, well, there was a funny something here. There could be a laugh pause there. So by the time I even got it to an open mic or maybe even a showcase, before it even left my house, some buddies, my son used to watch my sets too. You know, a couple of people saw him and was like, yeah, cut that shit out. Or people that aren't comedians. Yeah. Because that's essentially who we're trying to hook is non-comedian guest members.
I tell you, it's really hard with that one. I'll tell her a joke and she's like, I don't get it. Or like, that's funny.
Yeah.
Like, fucking laugh, smile, give me something.
Maybe you're just not funny.
I guess not. Shit.
But then what does she find funny would be a good question.
Well, she comes to the show and when I'm on stage doing it, she'll laugh.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like in here, like, cause to give her some credit, I never shut the fuck up. Right? I'm always saying goofy shit and I'm always inappropriate. I'm always saying weird shit constantly. So she's just used to it. And it's to the point where, you know, I have to tell her, hey, I'm going to tell you a joke. I want you to laugh if it's funny. And I want you to give me your honest feedback. Like I have to explain what her role is, you know, and then, you know, she's been great at, you know, when she goes to shows, she'll tell me like, hey, this was funny. This was funny. This was funny.
Nice.
Because when we first started dating, like I knew she had watched comedy before, but since we started dating, every night before we go to bed, we watch a comedy special. Like we literally fall asleep to Bill Burr almost every night.
Because still, like, do you watch the same ones over and over?
If there's nothing new, because we've watched everything on Netflix, we've watched everything on Prime. Like we're running out of shit to watch, so we're looking at old shit on YouTube now to try to fucking find some more shit. But once we find like Tom Segura or Bill Burr, like we'll just put one of those on because we know they're funny. And I also have brain damage, so sometimes I forget what the fuck they're gonna say. So it works out perfectly. It's like seeing it for the first time. But like now it's to the point where she's been to a bunch of shows with me. She records a lot of my shows for me, which is great. And she's told me a few times, like, I have to try not to laugh. So it's not just me laughing. Like I want you to catch the crowd laughing too. So she really has, you know, she's invested in what I want to do, which is great. So and she puts up me traveling with the nonprofit constantly. So
yeah,
I got lucky.
Yeah, a good partner can definitely help because there's kind of like a running theme. Our booker, Matt Doima, him and I joke about a lot is
he still doesn't book me a show.
Matt Doima, if you're listening to this, I'm gonna call you after this podcast and find out why you, Nick, haven't reached up. He sent me a screenshot that you guys started a message.
Yeah, we chat for a minute.
But he and I always joke around about like one of the best killers of a good comedy scene is a new girlfriend, or a new comedy career is a new girlfriend. Because we see comedy, and I've only been in 5 years, 6 years, whatever it's been. But we see comedians like start to do good, then they get a girlfriend and they're out. You just never see them again. Yeah. So having a good chick that it comes or doesn't mind you following that, it works. Mine's
nice because she wants to come, which is great. You know.
Yeah. My significant other, she helped me start Silly Beaver. She's there almost every week. She's running our door. She's filmed me for years. She is essentially my manager.
She was there with you when I came the other day. Okay. I thought that was her.
There's very rare that I'm there without her because if I'm not at the show, we're on vacation or we're doing something together. But I mean, she knows the comedy scene better than most comedians. So I could make her my booker because her and our other manager, we've done so many shows consistently. We've had 110, I think, comedians come through there in the last 21 months. They've seen so much different comedy that now they're like, that's funny or that's not.
Yeah.
But it's not for the reasons that someone might think, right? Like my managers now, if I'm gone, they're like, yeah, this comedian, like he was funny. You could see he was writing, but his stage presence is there. Or like they can analyze it a little better than just funny, not funny, funny, which is important for a business like that.
Yeah. And the more, I mean, like I said, I've been a huge fan of comedy for a long time, but I just started going to open mics back in February last year. And I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. And, you know, I listen to Kill Tony religiously too. And I listen to all the advice he gives to all the comedians, and I'm just sucking in as much as I can. And he literally tells some of his comedians, stop going to open mics, you know, especially like Hans Kim. He's the opener. He's like, dude, just stop going to open mics. Just go do paid gigs or go do guest spots. He's like, don't do fucking open mics, because it's just, you're performing in front of comedians. And something I've noticed, maybe I'm wrong, but comedians aren't usually big supporter of other comedians, especially if they're not friends.
What?
That's just
what?
Yeah, and I know there's people out there that can get irritated by that, but I don't give a fuck. Like, I've started noticing, like, every time I go in there, like, I'm not the most social person at open mics either, you know. So again, I know some of it's on me too, but I'm not a sit and get hammered, fucking talk shit kind of person. Like, I like to have conversations. I don't fit in, and I understand that, and that's okay. But every guest spot I've done has been so much fucking fun, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna do this. You know, maybe I'm cheating myself because I'm not doing enough time, but I mean, you know, like I said, with the motivational speaking, I go up and speak for 2 hours, and I don't have anything prepared, and a lot of it is just because it means something to me. And with the comedy, it's all connected to my life. I just tell stories. I almost never tell an actual joke that I just sat and wrote, because I'm not great at it. But I've had a lot of brain trauma too. So I have a hard time remembering like new shit, but all the old stuff and all the things that have happened in my life, it's very connected to me. And so it's a lot easier for me to pull it out. And the writing for me comes into play is what choice of words, you know. And if I do a set, I always record every set I do, and I sit down and I study it and see like what popped, what didn't, what word could I have changed this out with, because it either didn't make sense or it just wasn't clever enough or something like that. And, you know, I'm just doing my best to copy as many people as I can, but also put my version of what I want to do in there, you know. And like I said, I'm not fucking reinventing the wheels. Thousands of people have done what I'm doing right now, but it's just, this is what has worked best for me so far.
Yeah.
You know,
it's funny how Tony Hinchcliffe tells people not to do open mics, yet he has the most successful open mic of all time. Like hilarious. The dude's open mic made him a millionaire, or maybe he already was, but you know what I mean? And then but there is some truth to that.
It's more so to the regulars.
Yeah.
Because they go to open mics and they fucking waste good material, or, you know, you're performing in front of comedians usually.
And you get some of these places, they give you 3 minutes.
Yeah. Like,
dude, like I said, what are you gonna do with 3 minutes? I could have sex twice. That's about it. Like, I can't tell a joke, especially if you're a storyteller, like you said you were. You got to work your way into it. You got to plateau, and then you got to hit something hard to do that in 3 minutes. It really is an economy of words.
I treat it a lot like motivational speaking too, because when I go out as a motivational speaker, I used to teach people how to do motivational speaking too. So I always tell them, why the fuck should I listen to anything you have to say? You know, so you have to win them over. You have to get that relatability. And this is just motivational speaking. And then I take them on a roller coaster ride. You know, I throw in a lot of real hard truths that they fucking don't want to hear usually. But it's meaningful shit that's really could impact their lives if they apply it and they listen to it. And then I hit them with a joke, and then it's sad, happy, sad, happy. So I hit them with that. But with comedy, man, the biggest change for me is like going out with the intent just to make them laugh. That has been kind of hard for me. I'm working my way through it, but I want to get to the point where I can add in some of the suicide prevention stuff, because it is so important to me. But how do you fucking make that funny, you know?
Oh,
so
you don't know how? Yeah, because I think suicide and abortion are two of the ones that are really hard to make funny. But the second joke I ever wrote was a suicide joke.
Yeah.
And I still use it to this day.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful of the way you do it.
I think it needs to be tasteful. And somebody said something about like Dave Chappelle, like, you know, why is he so funny? Because he's funnier than he is offensive. Because he says offensive shit constantly. but that's if you let it be offensive. You know, if you're someone that's looking for a reason to be fucking mad at everything, it's gonna be real easy to hate him.
Yeah.
But
For
he's,
sure.
you know, he's fucking hilarious and he's relatable to a lot of people. And even though he shits on white people all the time, fucking half of his fans are white people because he's hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not an attack on anybody. So like I have like 2 or 3 jokes about my suicide attempt, and I haven't had the balls to try them yet. I want to do it eventually, but I need to. I guess I'm just not comfortable with it yet. I think it's fucking funny. Like I make jokes about my suicide all the time, you know, especially when I talk to somebody who has said like, you know, I tried to kill myself, didn't work. I was like, hey man, I'm glad you suck at killing yourself too. That makes them fucking laugh every time because it's relatable and they understand the humor behind it. You know, like you fucked up. You suck so bad you can't even kill yourself. And because I literally said that to myself after my attempt, like, dude, you suck. Like, you can't even fucking kill yourself properly. You worthless son of a bitch. And it's just for me trying to find a way to make that tastefully funny, you know, because you're talking about a personal attempt at suicide. And how do I sway that in a way to get the crowd to fucking laugh at it? You know, but at the same time, you know, with the nonprofit, I use comedy all the fucking time to get my relatability with these vets. You know, and it's not always just sad fucking storytelling. A lot of times it's dumb fucking shit that's happened, or I just say some dumb off the wall shit that makes everybody in the room laugh.
Yeah.
And for me, that's always been my relatability skill. So it's like transferring to comedy it's been, like I said, easier than I want to say that I thought it would be, but I'm nowhere where I want to be yet, you know? So I think the big thing is once this show starts up, it's a guaranteed every month I'm getting up, and, you know, interacting with you has been super helpful. Just kind of seeing the way you do things, and your marketing for your shit is way better than, yeah, you're very good at it.
Yeah.
I can tell you've done some work.
Thanks. Have you looked back at the beginning though?
Oh, it's the same with WNA. I was terrible.
Oh man. I look back at some of the first things that Silly Beaver did and I just like, I should take it down. You know what I mean? Cause like, so
my first podcast was like that. It was dog shit.
I believe it because I had no background in marketing or graphic design or any of that.
Yeah.
I did it. So like,
do you use Canva?
No, I use Adobe.
Okay.
But my origin story into comedy is very similar to yours. I started producing benefit shows for nonprofits to whereas I didn't have the nonprofit like your model is that you're doing. I just had some nonprofits come along. We did them for a bunch of different groups.
Yeah.
And I started doing my own posters and stuff that way and marketing. And I had a little bit of experience in marketing from one of my VA jobs because we tried to do a lot of public events for veterans and it's the same idea. You're trying to market an event essentially. But then I got into Voc Rehab chapter 31 to go back to school like 5 months before Silly Beaver opened in multimedia technology and design.
Okay.
So that degree, which I'm finishing next semester, is literally translates to what we're trying to do. It's marketing, it's graphic design, it's video production, it's everything involved with running comedy. So it's like I can't say that those are like skills. Like literally I have my homework up on one side and that week's poster for Silly Beaver up on the other, and I'm doing it back and forth to try and figure this out.
Well, you're great at it, dude. Your graphics are great. You know, the one, God, I had one poster made for the nonprofit show, and I think you came up with like 2 or 3 more and we're posting. I'm like, God damn it, dude. I was like, can I share these? And you're like, yeah, dumbass, do it. Yeah.
No, I didn't say that. Well, so I feel bad because I know as a promoter, like once a poster's made or graphics are made, like there's some pride in that depending on how it was made or who made it. Sometimes the promoter has a friend make it. And so if I change it or do a different graphic, sometimes I feel like I'm stepping on other toes.
Yeah, no.
However, if I'm trying to be the good comedian, right? Like we talked about earlier, there's more things than just being funny.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get tickets and butts in your seats for your show. If my name's not even on the poster, scratch that. If comedian A or B or C's name's not even on the poster and he's trying to publicly put it out there. How are their friends, family members, supporters going to know that I'm even on that show?
Yeah. And I've actually adopted that,
And
after that first one you made for us. I'm
right.
like, that's fucking smart.
And the name is the very minimum has to be on the poster of everybody, because sometimes, like, even our 5-minute guest sets at Silly Beaver, those are local folks who don't have showcases lined up every weekend.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who are putting 15 butts in seats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why not have their name or their picture on the poster? And
and I like your view on making it about the comedians, not just about Silly Beaver.
They're our
great
product.
Idea. Yeah.
If you're a business owner in the comedy scene, the comedians are your product. If I sold Monster Energy drink, this can and its contents are my product.
Mm-hmm.
I have to build it around this.
Yeah.
If you're running a comedy thing, those comedians are your product. You definitely want them happy.
Mm-hmm.
We transition. I started doing pictures of every comedian, even the guest set.
Yeah.
And that was super corny. But the first time my picture was on a poster, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a poster worth anything, but it was like, it's a milestone in your comedy career.
Yeah.
So now anybody that comes through Silly Beaver has that experience.
Well, see, I don't know.
It's a double-edged sword.
I don't know why I didn't think about that too, because when I was an MMA fighter, it took me, I think, 3 fights to get my picture on a poster. The first thing I did was fucking say, hey, I want an extra poster. And I hung that bitch on my wall.
Right.
When my girlfriend met me, I definitely had a man cave kind of fucking apartment, because my only decorations on my wall were all my jiu-jitsu medals, all my fight posters, pictures printed off from my fights. And it's like every single poster that my face was on there, I took pride in just seeing that fucking poster.
Right.
And I'm like, when you made that first one for us for the comedy show, I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, why? Duh.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense, right? Because now every comedian, like you were saying, they have pride in that poster because, hey, this is something I love doing and I'm on a fucking poster for it.
Yep.
So it's
it also creates some recognizability. That's not the word. Said I'm in college. Didn't say it was a good college, folks. But
you were also in the Army, folks.
Right.
Some slack.
But I mean, the attention span of your average customer is like 3 seconds on social media, right? So if I have a poster that has the old comedy mic and then nothing but words, I'm flipping through that shit. I'm not even looking to see where it's at. But if I have a poster, I come across and there's a picture of 4 people and I recognize one of those people, I'm stopping for 5 seconds longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Goes back to algorithms, goes back to community support. If those little things really can make a difference in the overall production, your overall success of the production, I think.
Yeah, and then you don't have just one person promoting the show. Now you have every one of those comedians promoting the show. Be like, hey, look, it's a comedy poster. I fucking told you I do comedy,
Dude, and then we get their parents reposting. That's a huge one, right? Because like these younger comedians, their parents like, look at what Billy's doing.
Yeah.
I get that all the time. But if I didn't put the name or the picture on the poster, would their parents even be looking? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would they even? So those little things, I think, can or maybe have added to our success.
Yeah, and I don't get jealous about shit like that, but
as soon as you said that, you got jealous.
Like, no, fuck you. No, initially, right when you said, like, you fucking idiot. Like, why didn't I think of that? And that's because I'm always trying to grow business-wise in a business sense. So, like, I adopt as much good shit as I can find. And the first time you did that, I'm like, I'm definitely doing that from now on. That's really fucking smart. Yeah. And it's so simple. And I should have fucking known that. And then I see it. I'm like, oh, fuck. That's a big reason why I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to dig my hooks into you a little bit and see how much I can learn from you, And I appreciate you offering the advice, because a lot of folks are very protective of their tiny little bubble. This is mine. You can't have it.
Dude, when I first started, I went into a research period before I even started comedy, right? Because everything I do, I research. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I like to do in research is find someone who's made it, whatever it is you're trying to do, and pick their brain, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was doing my research phase, I contacted a couple of bigger name comedians that were local, that were reachable, and was like, hey man, can I just sit down? I'll buy you lunch and like, what's your hourly rate if we got to do that? But I just kind of want to interview you, find out what your road was, what was successful, what wasn't. Yeah. And they were like, no, we're not meeting with you. Even if the ones that like knew who I was, or like, knew that I was a going to be trying comedy.
I just don't get that.
And so I was like, okay. So then I just started listening to podcasts and listening to, because that's the same research. You're listening to professional comedians say what worked and what didn't work.
That was Joe Rogan was big for me,
Yeah.
and Kill Tony, because the advice that they're constantly talking about comedy. So I love listening to the comedy podcast.
And the thing is, if comedy gets better everywhere, it gets better for everyone. That's the other part about the scene that I don't understand.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't remember what her name is. I'm not going to blast her, but I've tried to approach a few people that produce shows to try to say like, hey, what can I do to like try to get on? Because every time I come, I'm fucking first 5 in line to write my name down, and I'm not getting up. Like, is there something I'm doing wrong? Like, what can I do? And it's like they took it as like I'm an entitled piece of shit and got like irritated with me, when I'm just like, no, I'm just trying to figure out the scene.
Oh, I want to know that name offline. I bet there's one person that came into mind already.
Yeah.
And it's got to be her.
Well, it's a couple clubs, and it's frustrating, you know, and a lot of it is time availability for me, because I just took full custody of my kids too. So my time to go do comedy has drastically declined recently. But you know, if I keep doing it when I travel and just calling ahead saying, hey man, you know, I'm traveling, you know, I do, you know, guest spots all the time. Let me fucking come check out the show. But I like your theory too of offering them something, right? So it's not just saying, please, just saying, hey, if you know, I can get at least 10 people in the seats.
Yeah.
It's a smart strategy. I like it.
So from a promoter standpoint, they don't care. Like I said, if that place has a lease, they have electric bill every month.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit if you're the next Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
They give a shit if enough food was sold and enough tickets were sold that night to continue their business. If you did great, wonderful. If you did shitty, but you still brought 15 people, a promoter's thinking money signs.
Yeah.
So because you could, in theory, a promoter can throw a guest spot on every show just for the fact of trying to bring in those tickets, because your cost to benefit analysis swings in your favor. But you can't do that with headliners. You know what I mean? You can't book a headliner that no one's ever heard of, that you've never seen, that says they'll sell 15 tickets, because you can destroy your product. So
that's why it's nice that I took, because I remember you saying that, I don't remember, it was a couple months ago, when you book comedians, you have them send a video so you can see some of their work. And so when I open up, I posted on Twin Cities open mics, and I got flooded with people, you know, reaching out, which is great. And you know, shout out to Sydney too. She popped on there and said, hey, this room kills, you know, she's helping say, hey, this is a good room. So that was super helpful. And, you know, I've watched I only watch about 4 or 5 minutes of each one, because like I said, I've been a comedy fan for a long time. I can see it, and I can see whether this is not good or this is fantastic. Like Maggie, she goes by Extreme Maggie on Instagram. I told her, I watched 2 clips of hers, and I wrote her back immediately. I was like, you are going to be our next headliner. You're fucking hilarious. And, you know, so I just got my dates set for the next few months, which is great. And I text Chad from the Doghouse, and he was like, well, you know, I don't know if we can get that many shows. I'm like, trust me, dude. Like, I want to do this. It's going to happen. I was like, believe in me, because I'm going to make this happen. And literally within a day after making that post, I'm like, Chad, I have enough for 4 fucking shows right now. Like, let's go. And so 2 days later, he gave me a bunch of shows.
Yeah, there's not a lack of comedians. That's not the problem. There are so many good comedians in Minnesota. It's a lack of places to do comedy, really. And excuse me, there is a big underground scene, which is shows like Silly Beaver. Small rooms, bars, breweries, VFWs. There's comedy. I guarantee anywhere in Minnesota, there's comedy within 40 miles of you that weekend.
I thought about doing our show at a VFW, but I was just like, there's not a lot of the VFWs in Minnesota are they're kind of run down. It's not a place that people frequent. So the Doghouse just seemed like the smartest choice, you know, especially because, you know, me and Chad have a relationship, so it worked out nice. But like when we open up our dispensary, I'm hoping I can get a comedy room in there, but it's going to be small. I mean, we're just going to do open mics there. We're not going to do like big shows or anything, but it's just one more spot where comedians can come out and get a slot. You know, and I want it to be a place where guys can get on. I don't want to do the whole good old boy system, and I don't want to do that. And I know it happens and it's fine. You know, the fact that I'm not in the good old boy system in the Minneapolis area, I really don't give a shit. I'm going to find my way.
There is some benefit to the good old boy system in the sense of knowing who not to hire based on things other than comedy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
Right. So like, yeah, I know some comedians that are really funny and that have a lot of work, but every time I've worked with them, they're late, they're drunk. You know, there's enough factors that bump them down to not even wanting to hire them. But if I don't know enough about the scene, then I don't know who's who.
Yeah.
And I guess the way that translates into the good old boy system is you might see comedians on Silly Beaver from a comedy sense, right? There's a lot of jealousy. Why did he get a spot? Why did she get a spot? Well, that could be looked at as the good old boy system in the sense of my spot, because those comedians were overall better comedians, right? When it came into the draft, their combine scores were really good instead of just their sprint. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah. And personality has a lot to do with it too. Like, you know, we've all met a comedian or two that is just, the hang is just, it's so hard to be around them. Right. But they're funny on stage.
Yeah.
And I've met, again, this isn't to have to do with the actual me doing comedy, but being, you know, such a big fan of it. And then you hang out with some of these guys and they're just like, God, I want to go home so bad. Like, I don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
You know, and I like guys that can come in and just be friendly with everyone. I can't stand the whole fucking, you know, shouldering people and fucking not talking to them, you know, pushing them out, shunning. I'm not going to have any of that shit because it's not helpful for the community of comedy. You know, like you said, you know, comedy gets bigger everywhere. It's better for everyone because it's more opportunities and more people that can go do stuff.
Yep.
And I've been told by a few people, oh, be careful when you do shows. Like, you know, you don't want to piss these people off. Fuck them. Right. Cause I'm not doing this to fucking hurt anybody. I'm doing this as another opportunity, another show.
Yeah. I had a lot
of
that when I first started. I mean, I had people, I gotta watch what I say, but there are people who are now heavily involved with our operations that told me I couldn't do it, told me I shouldn't do it, gave me plenty of some legitimate reasons, like a booking agency that operates in our area that tells comedians they can't work with them if they do spots within a certain mile radius. And now we're in that mile radius, things like that. But I came to the conclusion, and so those people you're referring to, I probably did piss off on purpose.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a bridge burner. I am hardcore. Like, I will help you out. I will give you the shirt off my back. But the first time you burn me, I'm pouring gasoline on that bitch. And I'm smoking a cigarette while I'm doing it. Like, I'm burning the bridge.
Yeah.
And I've burned those bridges with the guarantee that people you're not supposed to piss off in the Minnesota scene. But if I focus more on them and their approval and their shows, than what I'm actually working to try and grow, I'll never succeed. So about a year in, I gave the fuck yous to all of those people. And I'm like, I am focusing on this room and the 4 Saturdays I've got.
Yeah.
And just making that decision, like I deleted every comedian off social media. I think you're the only one on Facebook, and that's because I don't consider you, like, we don't meet because of comedy. You know what I mean? And once I made that separation and stopped giving a shit really about the people who I was pissing off, our room grew, our success grew. Comedians became happier with our spot.
Well, it's if you equivalent that to business. When I started the nonprofit, I had a lot of fucking haters. A lot of people saying, "Hey, man, you can't just start a nonprofit." I'm like, "Fucking watch me." They're like, "What, do you think you're better than us?" I'm like, "No, I just want to do things my way, and this is what I want to do." And I get hate a lot because we are a non-faith-based organization, so nothing we do involves any kind of religion at all. And a lot of the religious folks tend to get, you know, pokey with us and like, "Well, you're not with God, so da 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 da." I'm like, the fuck does that have to do with making people better?
Bitch, I've been closer to God more times than you ever will.
I know, right? But it's frustrating to me. So I kind of think of it. I think of everything like as a business, and as business, I treat it like an MMA fight. You know, you gotta train, you gotta know your opponent, you gotta know this, you gotta know, you know, you have to understand what's gonna happen if this happens, and just having, same with like jujitsu. There's so many different levels that you have to think about. And I just treat it all like that. And for me, it's just a game. And
Yeah.
I never do anything to piss people off. I never do anything to intentionally hurt anyone or make somebody sad or mad. But if you get offended by me living my life, go fuck yourself. I don't care, because I don't have any ill intent towards anybody. If me opening a show pisses off so-and-so and so-and-so, I don't care. Right. Fucking
will.
bring it on.
It will.
And that's fine. Because like you said, I don't think about those people at all. If anyone's going to get mad at my success in any form of my life, I don't care, because I'm doing what I want to do. I'm living the life that I want to live, and I'm pretty fucking happy with it.
Yeah.
If it pisses people off, that's their fucking problem.
Yeah. There's a thin line you got to walk right there. Right. Because if you're treating it like a business, you're actually operating in two businesses under one roof, right? You're working as Nick Ron. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Ron, the comedian who wants more shows.
Yeah.
But then you're also working as Nick Ron, the producer, the boss, who, if you're the boss and you're running it like a business, just like it was in the military, like, I don't know about the Air Force, but in the Army, right? Like if I was a lower enlisted and my squad leader, E5, E6, addressed me at work, the conversation was different than if we were at a barbecue outside of work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I don't run it like that.
You have to.
You
have to strike them down. No, but like for example, if you're on a showcase as a comedian and the opener's 10 minutes late, who do you give a shit? It's not your show. It's not your business that's dependent on everyone showing up.
I get what you're saying.
And so like when I'm on shows, I am so much nicer because the success of the evening isn't on my shoulders.
Yeah.
When I'm in producer, Silly Beaver comedy business owner mode, I have so many other things to worry about that I have to play boss.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't play boss, this business that I'm establishing would have crumbled. And wearing both those hats in the scene is so hard. So I kind of gave up on one. Like
I can
Jonah
see
the
that.
comedian, like you had mentioned when I did your show in November, like there was not a lot of material out there of mine. I don't do that. It takes time. It takes energy. And if I'm pursuing Jonah comedian, then all that could be beneficial.
Yeah.
But my main focus is Silly Beaver comedy.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do both, man.
Sure. I know I won't, people ask me all the time to share my sets. I'm like, dude, I'm new. Like, no, I will not be the guy that's fucking 7 shows in and start sharing shit.
Yeah.
Because A, it's not worked out right.
Right.
I still got a lot of work to do on all of it. And B, I'm fucking brand new. A lot of my shit is the same shit over and over again right now. And they're like, oh, share it. I'm like, no, come to a fucking show.
Yeah. You could share it for like a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to maybe a small group just to get some feedback, but then take it down right away.
Yeah.
But I think you got the right idea
here and there. Like, just like there's one joke that's fairly clean. I talk about the first time I tried edibles or whatever. I clipped that one because it did really well, but it doesn't give away anything that I normally do.
Right.
Because I don't talk a lot about fucking weed and shit like that. But it was fairly clean. It was, lots of punchlines in it, and people were laughing. There was a lot of crowd laughter in the background. So it made the video look better too.
Yeah.
But like, other than that, I'm not going to fucking be the guy sharing stuff right now. Plus I also have Nick, the CEO of a nonprofit.
Right.
And I got to think about that as well. So I got to be careful what I release outside of an actual show.
Yeah.
So like when somebody comes to a show, I don't care, because I'm in there having fun. I don't care. But if I'm going to be putting media out about what I'm doing in comedy, I got to be careful, because donors are watching, people who support us are watching. You say one wrong thing, now they're like, oh, that's what you think? You're a piece of shit. Like, it was a fucking joke, right?
Yeah.
It's just a joke. Calm down.
And another reason why I don't like to post things is no expectations, right? So Matt Rife has talked about, because his crowd work clips got him so big, and not to discredit all his work and everything that he's done. He's been doing it for twice as long as I have.
Shit, he toured with Ralphie May.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Way back when. I think he started when he was like 16 or something. But, when we'll say his huge status kind of happened in the last 2 years, maybe. And a lot of that could be accredited to his crowd work clips that he does.
Yeah.
And he did an interview where he's like, now his whole his whole crowd shows up expecting crowd work.
Yeah.
So they're yelling more, they're more disruptive.
Yeah.
And so it's like, don't give anybody any pre-thought out perceptions about what they're going to do when they see you.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it on the head. Just come to a show.
Yeah.
Because I could watch the funniest comedy special in the room or on Netflix and I'll laugh. But if I was in the room during that recording, it's 100 times better.
Oh, for sure.
So, and that translates down to our level too.
Yeah.
Be in the room, have a few drinks, the lighting, the whole deal, and really experience the comedy.
It's just the atmosphere. I love going to shows. Like I've seen Bill Burr, I've seen everything he's done, and it was great. I went and saw him in person. I don't think I've laughed harder. And it was a lot of it's because the ambiance. You get everybody else laughing too, and laughter is contagious. And so it just builds so much more on every single joke that hits. Like I can't wait till his next special comes out. If it's the same one that he did on the tour, it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And same with like AJ. I was at the filming of his special, and Warriors Next Adventure sponsored it, and I think we did like $1,500 to be a co-producer of it. So Warriors Next Adventure name will be on all the shit that he puts out with that. Hopefully Netflix, it'll be sweet. But like I've seen all of his clips, and I was a big fan of his before he really started to blow up. And I sent him a message. I'm like, hey man, like you're a vet. I'm a vet. I was like, my daughter has autism and stuff. So it's actually, I love that the stuff that he does, it's literally educating people on what autism is and how to act to it. But he made everything fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And I was a fan of his before I went to go see a show. And then I went to a show and I got to meet him and hang out with him and everything. And I'm like, dude, fucking video clips just don't give it justice.
No,
they really doesn't.
They don't.
Like I said, come to a show.
Come to a show.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. Come to a show. And then that circles back around to making the producers happy, right? If you have more of your friends and family curious about what you're like on stage, offer them free tickets, bring them to shows, build your.
By the way, I'm never taking a free ticket from you. I'm always going to pay because I like to support it.
Take a free ticket, man.
Nope.
We gave away so many free tickets last week because like you said, I didn't start comedy or start Silly Beaver to make money.
Yeah.
I'm retired military. That pays my bills. And fully invested in a hobby that I'm fine with it taking all the money that is made.
Yeah.
But yeah, just sink it back in. I forgot where I was going with that.
I don't know. I think I'm glad comedy's really had another boom in the last like 2 years, just because like, I don't know. Comedy is always something that's always been there for me. And no matter what's going on in life, when I laugh, things just seem a little easier, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why I like what comedy stands for. I like doing it. Doing it is a lot of fun, but I'd rather go to a show and just sit and watch.
Yeah.
Like I love watching comedy. Doing it it's a thrill. It's a rush. It's something new. And I get to work out some of the goofy shit that's up in my head that I'm not supposed to say in public, you know? So it's kind of, it's a way to get another release, you know? And I tell people all the time that if you're struggling in any way, like you have to have a hobby. You have to have something else aside from your family. You know, when you ask somebody, what's your purpose? Like, oh, to be a good father. No, fuck that. Throw that out. What else do you bring into the world?
Don't be a good father, ladies and gentlemen. You hear that? Nick Ron says no.
There needs to be something more. You know, there needs to be some sort of value that you're bringing to the world. And, you know, especially with men, we need to feel needed. We need to feel like we are a productive member of society. And if you have no other hobbies or anything aside from raising your children, which being a good dad, great. I mean, I got my kids full time. I love being a dad, love my kids, play with them all the time. And it's not enough for me. I need more. And I have this irritating thing that I have inside my head where I have to continuously do something. And I've just converted that into doing something that's meaningful and helps other people. And I feel the same way about comedy as I do with the nonprofit, because going out there and making people laugh, and it's also reassuring to know that this shit in my head is actually kind of funny. I'm not just a fucking crazy person laughing at my own shit. So I get a lot out of it, man. I really fucking enjoy it.
Good.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it can be a positive thing. It means a lot of things to a lot of people, though.
I know not everybody's taking it the same way. You know, I know some people do it just to pay the bills. Yeah. But I don't know. I just think I enjoy this chapter. You know, I'm going to try to ride it out as long as I can, but
the reason why I do it really is because it's one of the only times like I'm feeling some crazy, like just everything all at once.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried to explain it to my partners, like, is very similar to riding my motorcycle 100 miles an hour or skydiving.
Yeah.
The feeling of
The
being
thrill
on
of it.
stage.
Yeah. It's that adrenaline.
It's not just adrenaline. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Still to this day, I do it multiple times a week and I still get scared every time.
Yeah. I hope that never goes away. I still get a little bit nervous when I go out and start doing a speech, but usually minute or two into it, it's like, okay, this is just normal. Same with like MMA, same with, comedy so far. I'm always nervous right at first. Like even like 5 minutes before I go up, I'm fucking having a damn near a panic attack. Like the first like 3 or 4 times I went to an open mic and signed up, I fucking left.
Yeah.
Because I can't do this. I can't do this. But finally I had enough. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Now's the time.
Anybody can do it. Anybody can do anything.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, dude, thank you for coming on. Go ahead and give Silly Beaver a shout out. And how can people find you? How can people, when you do shows?
Check out Silly Beaver. Let's see. We've got an Instagram, a Facebook at Silly Beaver Comedy. We've got a website, sillybeavercomedy.com. You can find me on Instagram at Jonah Maddox. In person, let's see, this Friday I got a show in St. Cloud at Witt's Crafts. 100% of the proceeds is being donated to a children's organization.
Nice.
And then Saturday we got a double show in St. Cloud. So that's where you can find me. You don't want to find me. Believe me, like we were talking about, I am boring on social media. You want to see me in a show.
Yeah, we're scanning through some of your shows coming up. You got some pretty good people coming up, man.
Yeah, our booker Matt Doima has been bringing in a whole line of comedians that were outside of my knowledge base. So we've had a good time.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
And I'll hopefully see you on stage soon.
Hopefully
Matt gets his shit
Matt
together.
Doima. I'm calling you after this. All right, man. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. I appreciate it. If you guys want to donate to the nonprofit, just go to warriorsnextadventure.com. There's a donate button right there. It uses PayPal Giving Fund, and there are no fees. So whatever you donate goes back to the veterans. If you scroll down on the page, we got our veteran crisis line. If you are in crisis, contact the veteran crisis line or give us a call. I got 19 years experience with crisis intervention, and I guarantee I can help you out. If you don't have your VA claim, go get your damn VA claim. If you need help getting it, go ahead and contact us. We're on all social media as Warriors Next Adventure. Again, go check out Silly Beaver, especially if you're in the St. Cloud area or even in the cities. It's not too long of a drive to get out to St. Cloud. So go support your local comedians. Go support your local nonprofits. Take care of yourselves. Love you guys.